Caius Veiovis, who resembles the devil's reincarnation, to Wade Wilson's hate-filled facial tattoos and Nico Jenkins's self-inflicted mutilations and Jaime Osuna's Joker-like scary face, these 8 men have transformed their bodies and minds into living nightmares, scaring even security operatives. Caius Veiovis. Caius Veiovis, a name he chose to reflect his satanic beliefs, embodies the intersection of psychological disturbance, physical intimidation, and calculated violence that makes certain criminals particularly memorable and feared. A Hells Angels associate, Veiovis was convicted in 2014 of 3 counts of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and witness intimidation for his role in the 2011 Pittsfield triple murders. What sets Veiovis apart from other violent criminals isn't just his crimes, it's his deliberately cultivated image of evil that he uses as a psychological weapon. His involvement in the gruesome killings was enhanced by his disturbing appearance, including facial implants and tattoos that underscored his menacing presence. The decision to surgically alter his appearance to look more demonic reveals someone who views intimidation as an art form, carefully crafting a visual presentation designed to maximize psychological impact. The psychological profile revealed by Veiovis's choices, his adopted name, his surgical modifications, his satanic beliefs, suggests someone who has deliberately constructed an identity around intimidation and fear.
Now, I'll see you all in hell. Really remember that. Every one of you, I'll see you in hell.
Veiovis participated in the kidnapping, shooting, and dismemberment of 3 victims with Hall and Chalou, with his role in the gruesome killings reflecting his commitment to his cultivated image of evil. The dismemberment aspect of the Pittsfield murders suggests someone who was comfortable with the most gruesome aspects of the crime, possibly even volunteering for the most disturbing tasks. His willingness to participate in the systematic butchering of human beings reveals a level of psychological detachment from normal human empathy that makes him extraordinarily dangerous in any social environment. Sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without parole on September 29, 2014, with the sentence upheld in 2020, Veiovis represents a continuing management challenge for correctional officials. His carefully constructed demonic image serves multiple purposes. It intimidates other inmates, potentially attracts followers who are drawn to his satanic beliefs, and creates an atmosphere of unease wherever he's housed. In prison environments, Veiovis's combination of violent history and deliberately intimidating appearance makes him someone who could easily become a focal point for prison conflicts. Other inmates might either seek to challenge his reputation or align themselves with his image, creating ongoing security concerns. His apparent comfort with the most gruesome aspects of violence suggests someone who might escalate quickly to extreme brutality in prison conflicts. The ritualistic elements suggested by his name choice and appearance indicate someone whose violence might be motivated by belief systems that normal psychological evaluation might not fully comprehend. His apparent embrace of evil as an identity, rather than simply a means to criminal ends, suggests someone whose dangerousness extends beyond typical criminal motivations into psychological territory that makes him unpredictable and potentially unlimited in his capacity for violence. While the US prison system is equipped with supermax facilities, special management units, and gang protocols designed to manage even the most dangerous criminals, these Hells Angels members represent the cutting edge of criminal sophistication and violence that continues to challenge correctional strategies. Their stories reveal the ongoing evolution of organized crime and the persistent challenge of managing individuals whose capacity for violence and criminal influence extends far beyond what their physical incarceration might suggest. Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson, whose name coincidentally matched that of the Marvel antihero Deadpool, underwent a dramatic physical transformation that would make him one of the most recognizable prisoners in America. Wilson's face is extensively covered with tattoos, including 2 swastikas, one under his right eye and another on his scalp. These symbols, strongly associated with white supremacy and hate, were largely added during his incarceration, as his 2019 arrest mugshot showed a face relatively free of such markings. Other notable tattoos include TTG, possibly Time to Go, or Train to Go, Bred for War under his chin, and NMM on his left jaw, all suggesting a readiness for violence. On October 7, 2019, Wilson strangled Christine Melton, 35, after meeting her at a music venue. Hours later, he encountered Diane Ruiz, 43, on the street, and, after gaining her trust by asking for directions, committed an act so brutal that prosecutors would describe it as heinous, atrocious, and cruel. Stephen Testaseca, Wilson's father, recounted the chilling phone conversation in which his son described the crimes.
He said he got on top of her and choked her. What name did he call her? Did he refer to her in a derogatory term?
He said, I choked that bitch.
The second victim's fate was even more disturbing. After Wilson thought he had ended Ruiz's life, he discovered she was still breathing.
So what did he tell you he did when he realized she's still breathing?
He said he got back in the car and ran her over until she looked like spaghetti.
What made Wilson's case particularly chilling was not just the brutality of his actions, but his demeanor while confessing. His father testified about Wilson's emotional state during the confession.
As he's telling you all these things, what's his demeanor as he's telling you?
He was excited.
When you say excited, what do you mean by that?
I felt like he was wanting me to feel the way he felt about it.
Wilson's criminal history extends back to 2012, with 14 previous convictions including burglary, grand theft, firearm offenses, and battery. His connection to the Unforgiven, a white supremacy prison gang identified as the largest in Florida's prison system. Despite his heinous crimes, Wilson gained an unexpected following, receiving nearly 4,000 messages and 65 letters from supporters, particularly women who argued he appeared healthier in prison and pleaded for a lighter sentence. In August 2024, Wilson was sentenced to death for both murders. The judge's words during sentencing captured the gravity of his crimes.
Given the facts of the case, nothing in defendant's background or mental state would suggest that a death sentence is inappropriate.
Yet even Wade Wilson's hate-filled modifications pale in comparison to this man who carved evil into his very flesh in service of ancient gods of chaos. Nico Jenkins. Only a few cases in the history of criminals are as disturbing as that of Nico Jenkins, a man whose descent into violence was matched only by his deliberate self-mutilation in service of what he claimed was a divine mission. Jenkins's scariest-looking reputation stems from his deliberate self-mutilation, including carving 666 on his forehead and attempting to reshape his tongue and other body parts to resemble a snake. These modifications align with his claims of following Apophis, the Egyptian snake god, creating an appearance that unnerves even seasoned correctional officers. But Jenkins's path to infamy began long before his physical transformation. His criminal behavior started early, with incidents like bringing a loaded handgun to school at age 7 and committing armed robbery by 17. After serving 10.5 years of an 18-year sentence for carjacking and prison assaults, Jenkins was released on July 30, 2013. What followed was a spree of violence that would terrorize Omaha, Nebraska. Between August 11 and 21, 2013, Jenkins committed 4 murders that demonstrated escalating brutality. Juan Uribe Pena, 26, and Jorge C. Cajiga Ruiz, 29, were found shot in the head with a 12-gauge shotgun in a white Ford pickup truck near a city swimming pool. They had been lured under false pretenses. Curtis Bradford, 22, whom Jenkins had met in prison, was shot twice in the back of the head. The final victim, Andrea Kruger, 33, was discovered with multiple shotgun wounds to the face, neck, and shoulder. During his confession, Jenkins revealed the twisted ideology that drove his crimes.
Like, okay, my religion of Cthulhu, that's the underworld. He was like on the mummy, the black book. So this was them, my little cousins. So whenever in the house with me, that when I got to serve the search warrant,
Right.
This was their ritual of sacrifice.
Jenkins claimed to hear voices from the Egyptian snake god Apophis, which he said commanded him to commit the murders. Jenkins's courtroom behavior further demonstrated his volatile nature. During his trial, he exhibited bizarre and animalistic behavior, including speaking in tongues, howling, and laughing as prosecutors recounted the details of his victims' deaths. When given the opportunity to testify, he made claims that shocked even those familiar with his case.
He also testified he did not commit those 4 murders.
Over his more than 4 decades of potential incarceration, Jenkins accumulated over 100 rule violations, including assault, possession of weapons, and threatening prison staff. His repeated suicide attempts, including slashing his throat and damaging his eye and neck with a sharpened tile, highlighted his unpredictable and dangerous nature. As of July 2024, Jenkins remains on Nebraska's death row, with no confirmed execution date due to automatic appeals. If you thought Jenkins's self-mutilation was the depths of human depravity, prepare yourself for a man who doesn't just destroy himself, but transforms his victims into grotesque art pieces. Jaime Osuna. Only a few criminals inspire as much fear and revulsion as Jaime Osuna, a man whose nickname, the Man with 1,000 Faces, reflects both his changing appearance and his capacity for unimaginable violence. Osuna's appearance is notably intimidating, with his face covered in tattoos, including a Joker smile and a pentagram on his forehead. These modifications have drastically altered his appearance over the years, making him nearly unrecognizable from a decade ago and contributing to his fearsome reputation. Osuna first gained notoriety in 2011 when he was arrested for the torture and murder of Yvette Pina, a 37-year-old mother of 6, at a Bakersfield motel. The brutality of this crime was shocking enough, but it was Osuna's confession years later that revealed the true depth of his depravity. In a rare jailhouse interview, Osuna provided chilling insights into his motivations.
I've been a cutter since I was 12 years old, all in my arms since I was 12. And I've been that type of person where as I grow older and older, I seem to get more disconnected emotionally and physically to things. So it's hard to get an emotional sense of things.
His explanation for his crimes was even more disturbing.
So as you kill a person, it's more of trying to get a rush. It's a rush, it's an addiction, it's a drug. I would rather do that than do drugs. I'd rather do that than have sex with the beautifulest woman in the world.
But Osuna's reign of terror was far from over. In March 2019, while already serving a life sentence at Corcoran State Prison, he committed what prosecutors described as one of the most gruesome crimes in recent California prison history. Using a makeshift knife, Osuna beheaded and dissected his cellmate, Luis Romero. The details of this crime were so disturbing that even experienced investigators were traumatized. The crime scene revealed the extent of Osuna's depravity. He had not only ended Romero's life, but had mutilated the body, removing multiple body parts. Most disturbingly, he fashioned a necklace from his victim's body parts and posed the body with a sliced face resembling an extended smile. On the cell walls, he wrote "Haha" and "The Man with 1,000 Faces" in blood.
He admitted to us on camera then that he killed the woman simply because he had the opportunity.
The crime took hours to complete, during which prison guards failed to notice what was happening, falsely reporting both inmates alive during rounds. This failure raised serious questions about prison oversight and safety protocols. In his interview, Osuna showed no remorse for his actions, describing his complete disconnection from normal human emotions.
I don't have no sympathy. I'm sadistic. I really don't care. I'll do it and I'll do it again over and over and over.
From the Man with 1,000 Faces, we descend to encounter someone whose single most disturbing feature would make even Osuna's victims seem merciful by comparison. Jason Barnum. Jason Barnum earned his nickname from a tattoo that darkened the white part of his right eye. Beyond this striking modification, his face is adorned with extensive tattoos, including skulls, skeletons, and lips rimmed with skeletal teeth, creating what many describe as a demonic and intimidating appearance. Barnum's criminal record spans multiple decades, with 14 previous convictions dating back to 1993, including burglaries in 1994, 2000, and 2005. However, it was his actions on September 12, 2012 that would cement his reputation as one of Alaska's most dangerous criminals. On that day, Anchorage police were investigating a series of home burglaries and car thefts when they encountered Barnum at a local hotel. What followed was a violent confrontation that demonstrated just how dangerous this tattooed figure could be.
37-year-old Jason Barnum allegedly shot a police officer from a hotel bathroom. APD says the officer was grazed along the back of Barnum's bullet, and in return fire, Barnum was also shot and injured.
Barnum opened fire from a bathroom, wounding one officer and engaging in a 2-hour standoff before being arrested on 33 criminal counts. The intensity of the encounter was highlighted when 2 officers shot back, striking him in the arm. During his trial, Barnum's appearance became a focal point of discussion. Anchorage Police Department Chief Mark Mew noted that Barnum's tattoos indicated a long-standing decision to be antagonistic towards society. Barnum himself acknowledged the impact of his appearance on his prospects, stating in court that employers were put off by his beautiful face, which he claimed hindered his ability to find work.
According to charging documents, Barnum admitted to stealing from homes to feed his heroin addiction.
Barnum later pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted murder, first-degree burglary, and third-degree felony in possession of a weapon, receiving a 22-year sentence in Anchorage Superior Court in 2015. But sometimes the most terrifying prisoners aren't those who modify their bodies into weapons of fear, but those whose unassuming appearance masks a mind so twisted it can turn others into instruments of unimaginable evil. Charles Manson. While Charles Manson may not have been the largest or most physically imposing prisoner, his combination of bizarre appearance, charismatic evil, and historical notoriety made him one of the most feared figures in the American correctional system. Standing at just 5 feet 2 inches tall, he was notably shorter than average, but his long, unkempt hair and intense, often described as crazed, eyes created a wild and unpredictable appearance. Most striking was the mark on his forehead, initially an X, carved during his 1970 trial, which he later modified into a swastika, a symbol that became his defining visual feature. Manson's path to infamy began with his leadership of the Manson family cult in the late 1960s. After his release from prison in 1967, he formed a group consisting mostly of young women from middle-class backgrounds, whom he radicalized through a twisted blend of counterculture philosophy, Scientology, and his apocalyptic vision of a race war he called Helter Skelter. In July and August 1969, Manson directed his followers to commit at least 9 murders, including the high-profile killings of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and 6 others over 2 nights in Los Angeles. During his trial, Manson's bizarre behavior and appearance captivated the nation. In a rare interview, he revealed his philosophy and self-perception.
Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight razor if you get too close to me.
Manson's behavior in prison further solidified his reputation as a dangerous inmate. Over his more than 4 decades of incarceration at San Quentin, Vacaville, and Corcoran state prisons, he accumulated over 100 rule violations. These included physical altercations with guards and other inmates, possession of weapons such as hacksaws and cell phones, threatening staff by spitting in guards' faces and throwing hot coffee, and disruptive acts like attempting to cause floods and setting his mattress ablaze. Manson's mental health issues, including diagnoses of schizophrenia and paranoid delusional disorder, were noted during parole hearings. His refusal to attend parole hearings after 1997 and his statements during earlier hearings, such as claiming he was God and the devil at the same time, further reinforced his unpredictable and dangerous persona. While Manson orchestrated death from the shadows, our next prisoner brought terror directly to his victims' doorsteps, his rotting smile being the last thing families would see before their worlds ended in blood and darkness. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, became not just one of California's most feared criminals, but eventually one of the most intimidating prisoners in the American. Ramirez's physical characteristics significantly contributed to his reputation as one of the scariest-looking prisoners. His curly hair, bulging eyes, and wide-spaced, rotting teeth created a gaunt and menacing appearance that was frequently emphasized in media coverage. This disheveled look, combined with his open embrace of Satanism and display of pentagrams and satanic symbols, made him appear almost demonic to those who encountered him. Between April 1984 and August 1985, Ramirez terrorized California, committing at least 14 murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries across Greater Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area. His crimes were characterized by their randomness and brutality, with victims ranging from a 6-year-old child to an 84-year-old woman.
Richard Ramirez's whole trip was to hide in a tree or hide behind a fence and watch his victims at nighttime and wait into the wee hours of the night. And then, while they slept, creep in, like a coward, and kill them.
In rare interviews, Ramirez offered insights into the mind of a serial killer, though he refused to discuss his specific crimes.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe, poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
Even in prison, Ramirez remained a significant threat. His behavior demonstrated that incarceration had not diminished his dangerousness. In 1988, jail employees overheard Ramirez plotting to smuggle a gun into the courtroom to harm the prosecutor, prompting the installation of metal detectors and intensive searches.
In that trial, Ramirez's fascination with Satanism emerged.
As far as Satan is concerned, I believe that, malevolent being. His description eludes me, but I have felt powers that are evil.
In 1993, Ramirez planned to escape San Quentin by feigning illness to be transported to a hospital with minimal security. He had hidden a handcuff key, a ballpoint pen, a syringe, and other items, intending to overpower his escorts and resume his killing spree. The plan was thwarted when a metal detector detected the items during a court appearance transfer. Ramirez openly bragged to prison officers and inmates about having killed more than 20 people, showing no remorse for his actions.
Is to get executed rather than spend the rest of my life in prison. I don't have any hope of getting out, and I don't see it as a reality. Realistically, looking at it, this is a wicked world, and in a wicked world, wicked people are born. You know, and, regretting is not my style. I cannot regret. It just isn't me.
Ramirez died on June 7, 2013 at Marin General Hospital from complications related to B-cell lymphoma, compounded by chronic substance abuse and hepatitis C. His death was unclaimed, and his body was cremated, marking the end of a reign of terror, but ensuring his legacy as one of history's most notorious and frightening prisoners. Yet even the Night Stalker's reign of terror seems random compared to the calculated hatred of a man who didn't just kill for pleasure, but turned murder into a mission of racial purification, his very skull bearing the words that would seal his victim's fate. Jeremy Moody. Jeremy Moody stands out not just for his violent crimes, but for his unrepentant hatred and the visible symbols of extremism tattooed across his body. Moody's appearance is notably intimidating, featuring a bald head adorned with prominent tattoos including White Power on his head, Skinhead stretching nearly ear to ear beneath his chin, and Made in America on the side of his head. These visible markers of his extremist ideology, combined with his courtroom behavior, enhance his fearsome reputation. In July 2013, Moody, along with his wife Christine, committed a crime that shocked South Carolina. They killed Charles Parker, a registered sex offender, and his wife Gretchen in Jonesville. The couple used a pretext of car trouble to gain entry into the Parkers' home, where they carried out their planned attack using a .380 handgun and knife. Moody confessed to targeting Charles Parker due to his sex offender status, and investigators discovered evidence that he had planned to kill another sex offender that same day, as evidenced by a note with another individual's details found in his possession. What made Moody's case particularly disturbing was not just the calculated nature of the crime, but his complete lack of remorse. During the trial, the couple initially apologized and requested a 30-year sentence, but their true feelings emerged after sentencing.
Child molesters do not deserve to live. They got exactly what they deserve. I had to do it over again. I'd kill more.
When asked about their courtroom apologies, Moody's response revealed the calculated deception.
What about what you said in court about repenting? Is that not true then?
No, it's not true. My lawyer made me say it.
Moody identified as a proud member of Crew 41, a South Carolina white supremacist group, though he claimed the murders were not directly tied to the group. His tattoos and ideology reflect a deep commitment to white supremacist beliefs, which he expressed through his justification of the murders as God's will.
I think Jeremy and I would have done it again if given the opportunity.
Do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Killing that pedophile was the best day of my life.
In May 2014, Jeremy and Christine Moody were sentenced to life in prison without parole. The couple's courtroom behavior, including smirking and shouting at the victim's family post-sentencing. When asked if they had anything to say to the victim's family, their response encapsulated the depth of their hatred.
Do you have anything to say to the victim's family?
May they die also.
Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.
From shadowy gang leaders to cyber masterminds, the world of crime never stops evolving, and neither does the hunt. In this story, we're diving into the lives of 4 of the most notorious fugitives who were finally brought to justice in 2024 and 2025. Each one left behind a trail of chaos, violence, or financial destruction. But no matter how far they ran, the law eventually caught up. These are real cases, real arrests, and unbelievable stories. Stick around for every wild twist, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more crime deep dives every week. Coming to the first case, Francisco Javier Roman Bardals was born in 1982 in El Salvador. a country long troubled by gang violence and political instability. His rise to power in the infamous MS-13 gang began during his teenage years as he navigated the streets of San Salvador, where survival often meant choosing sides. For Roman Bardales, that side was MS-13, or Mara Salvatrucha, one of the most violent and feared criminal organizations in the Americas. What started as a gang formed by immigrants in Los Angeles in the 1980s had by the 2000s evolved into a transnational criminal empire, and a Roman Bardales quickly emerged as one of its key players. Over the next 2 decades, he became a shadowy but central figure in the gang's leadership, coordinating drug trafficking, extortion, and human smuggling routes that ran from Central America up through Mexico and into the United States. He was known for keeping a low profile, preferring to operate behind the scenes while ordering brutal acts of violence. Authorities allege that Roman Bardales was not just a high-ranking leader. He was instrumental in planning the gang's international operations and orchestrating terror campaigns that extended far beyond his home country. By the early 2020s, his name had become familiar to law enforcement agencies in multiple countries. He was tied to several high-profile murders, mass kidnappings, and weapons smuggling operations. U.S. prosecutors began building a massive racketeering case against him, centered on narco-terrorism, an explosive charge that linked him directly to attempts at destabilizing governments through acts of violence and fear. According to federal documents, Roman Bardales had coordinated attacks on rival gangs, and even local law enforcement in El Salvador and Guatemala, leaving a trail of bloodshed in his wake. But despite the mounting charges and international warrants, he remained at large for years, shielded by corrupt officials and the sprawling MS-13 network. He became a ghost. In the slums of Tegucigalpa and the jungles near the Guatemalan border, rumors swirled of a man known only by his alias El Silencioso, or the Silent One. Many believed he had died, while others claimed he was living in luxury under a fake identity. All the while, U.S. and Mexican authorities, in partnership with Interpol and Central American governments, continued tracking every whisper, every intercepted call, and every suspicious movement linked to him. Then came a break. In early 2025, intelligence analysts intercepted an encrypted message indicating that Roman Bardales was hiding in the town of Teocelo, a quiet coffee-growing community nestled in the mountains of Veracruz, Mexico. Posing as a businessman involved in agricultural trade, he had blended into the local population. He kept a low profile and avoided digital communication, relying on hand-delivered messages and burner phones, but no system is perfect. On March the 17th, 2025, after months of careful surveillance and planning, a joint task force of Mexican Marines and U.S. federal agents moved in at dawn. They surrounded a modest hillside villa where Roman Bardales had been staying. He attempted to flee through a back window, but was tackled before reaching the woods. The arrest was clean and quiet, a stark contrast to the violent legacy he left behind. He was immediately extradited to New York under heavy guard. There, he now faces multiple federal charges, including conspiracy to commit racketeering, narco-terrorism, and ordering acts of murder and kidnapping. Prosecutors allege he played a direct role in trafficking thousands of pounds of narcotics into the U.S., as well as coordinating the movement of undocumented migrants through dangerous cartel-controlled routes. More chillingly, he's believed to have been behind several murders of informants and federal witnesses, which could lead to additional counts of obstruction of justice and witness tampering. Roman Bardales' arrest marks one of the most significant blows to MS-13's international leadership in years. Officials say it disrupts a major command node of the gang's operations, though they also caution that the organization's decentralized structure means others are ready to take his place. Still, for the families torn apart by his violence, the arrest brings a long overdue measure of justice. He now awaits trial in a federal detention center in Brooklyn, heavily guarded and held under special administrative measures to limit his communication with the outside world. His downfall is a reminder of how even the most powerful fugitives hidden behind networks of fear and silence are not beyond the reach of law. And though it took years, dozens of agencies, and the coordination of multiple countries, the man who once ruled from the shadows now faces justice in broad daylight. Let's come to the next case. Deshaun Thoroughbred Davis was born in 1996 in Toronto, Canada, and spent most of his youth on the east side of the city, where gang culture and poverty intersected in ways that shaped his future. By the time he was in his teens, Davis had already gained a reputation for being bold, unpredictable, and dangerous. He earned the nickname Thoroughbred, not from horse racing, but from how often he boasted about being built different, pure street stock, untouched by fear or compromise. That reputation grew quickly, not just in Canada, but across the border into the U.S., where he began spending time in Florida and Georgia, moving between cities parties and criminal connections. In 2023, Davis found himself at the center of one of Miami Beach's most violent and high-profile nightclub shootings. On the night of October 8th, witnesses say Davis got into an argument inside a packed VIP lounge near Ocean Drive. The altercation likely tied to a drug deal gone wrong, or some turf-related grudge spiraled into chaos when he pulled a pistol from his waistband and opened fire. One man, a 24-year-old Florida native with no gang affiliations, was killed instantly. Two others were badly injured as people screamed and ducked behind tables. Davis disappeared into the night before police even had a chance to secure the scene. Surveillance cameras captured him leaving the club in a black SUV with out-of-state plates. But by the time law enforcement tracked the vehicle, it had been torched in an empty lot outside Jacksonville. For months after the shooting, Davis was considered armed, extremely dangerous, and one of the most wanted fugitives linked to an active homicide investigation. Despite tips and sightings across multiple states, including Georgia, Texas, and Nevada, Davis managed to evade capture, often slipping through surveillance by switching phones, aliases, and vehicles. Authorities say he used a network of criminal contacts on both sides of the border to keep moving, including members of Canadian street gangs and U.S.-based drug runners. His trail was cold by early 2024, leading some to believe he may have returned to Canada under a new identity. But in reality, Davis had gone off-grid in Northern California. Specifically, he'd holed up in a small community called Redway, a quiet town in Humboldt County, known more for its cannabis farms and off-the-grid living than for harboring international fugitives. He had taken on a new identity, grown out his beard, and posed as a freelance construction worker. He paid cash for everything, lived in a rental cabin in the woods, and kept to himself. Local residents later said he seemed quiet but respectful, never causing problems, always disappearing into the trees as the sun went down. It was a routine traffic stop that finally brought him down. On August 5th, 2024, a California Highway Patrol officer pulled over a black pickup truck for a broken taillight just outside of Redway. The driver had no ID, gave a fake name, and showed signs of nervousness. The officer ran the plates, which didn't match the truck's VIN number. Backup arrived, and once they removed the man from the vehicle and searched him, they found a handgun tucked in his waistband. The serial number scratched off. Fingerprints confirmed what the man wouldn't say. He was Deshaun Davis, wanted for murder in Miami Beach. The arrest sent waves through law enforcement circles on both sides of the border. Davis had been listed by U.S. Marshals as one of their top fugitive targets, and the investigation into his whereabouts had pulled in resources from the FBI, ATF, and even Canadian authorities. He was transported under tight security to Miami-Dade County, where he was booked on charges of first-degree murder, attempted murder, illegal possession of a firearm, and fleeing prosecution. Prosecutors argue that Davis was more than just a nightclub shooter. They believe he was deeply involved in a network of gun running and narcotics trafficking, and they plan to present evidence of additional crimes he committed while on the run. His lawyers, meanwhile, have tried to argue that he was unfairly targeted due to his past affiliations, and that there's no direct evidence tying him to the murder weapon. But investigators are confident. Ballistics from the nightclub scene match the weapon found on Davis when he was arrested. Surveillance footage and witness testimonies place him at the scene just before the shooting. And several members of his crew have already turned state's witness. Now, facing trial in Florida, Davis sits in county jail, isolated and closely monitored. The nickname Thoroughbred no longer echoes as loudly through the streets. For a while, he moved like a ghost, untouchable, and one step ahead. But even the best fugitives slip eventually, and when they do, the streets remember not the myth, but the man. Going to the next case. Charles Ray. Blevins was born in 1979 in Huntington, West Virginia, a town that's seen more than its share of violence, addiction, and poverty. From a young age, Blevins was in and out of trouble mostly for petty thefts and drug charges. As he got older, his crimes escalated and so did his reputation. He had a temper, a record, and a history of violence that made him well known to police across both West Virginia and neighboring Kentucky. But even with his rap sheet, no one was prepared for what came in 2023. That year, Blevins was accused of killing a man during a dispute in a rural part of eastern Kentucky. The victim, a 32-year-old named Anthony Mercer, was found shot multiple times in the chest outside a trailer on a dead-end road. Witnesses said they heard yelling, then gunshots, then saw a dark SUV speeding away police named Blevins as the prime suspect within days. But by the time they showed up with an arrest warrant, he was gone. He'd already crossed state lines, leaving behind his phone, his vehicle, and any trace of where he was headed next. The murder wasn't Blevins' first brush with violence. He was a convicted felon who wasn't even supposed to be carrying a firearm. In fact, he'd just been released on parole after serving time for an earlier weapons charge. His violation of that parole made him a fugitive, but it was the murder charge that turned him into a major target. U.S. Marshals soon added him to their list of high-priority fugitives, and his name was circulated widely in West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio. Despite this, months went by with no sign of him. He seemed to vanish into the cracks of the Appalachian region, where rural roads and small communities made it easy for someone to disappear if they knew how law enforcement believed Blevins was getting help, possibly from former associates involved in the drug trade. He had ties to several outlaw groups and was known to deal in meth weapons and stolen property. Some even speculated he may have left the region entirely, possibly heading west to avoid the intense manhunt in his home state. There were occasional tips, a truck stop sighting in Tennessee, a second-hand report of him working on a farm in Alabama, but none of them checked out. Then, in April 2025, he made a mistake. Authorities in South Carolina were investigating an unrelated stolen vehicle case when a man matching Blevins' description was spotted entering a hardware store near Greenville. When officers ran the security footage, they realized they had something bigger on their hands. Within 48 hours, they tracked him to a small cabin just outside town. He didn't go quietly. When police surrounded the place, Blevins tried to run out the back, armed and desperate. A short chase followed through nearby woods, but he was taken down by a K-9 unit and arrested without firing a shot. Now, back in Kentucky, Blevins faces a long list of charges: first-degree murder, unlawful possession of a firearm, and multiple counts of parole violation. He's also being investigated for other unsolved crimes that occurred during the year and a half. He was on the run. Detectives say he was likely involved in small-time burglaries and possibly helped traffic meth across county lines during his time in hiding. Locals who remembered him growing up described him as someone who always seemed like trouble waiting to happen. He had a rough home life, got expelled from school more than once. and bounced between jobs and jail cells for most of his adult years. His story isn't just about one violent act, it's the end of a long, slow descent into a life of crime that started long before anyone ever heard of Anthony Mercer. Now, facing life in prison, the man who spent over a year slipping through back roads and safe houses is finally where the law can catch up to him. Now, let's come to the last case on the list. Veer Shaital was born in 1993 in Danbury, Connecticut, into a well-educated and respected family. His parents were both engineers who had immigrated from India in the early 1980s, hoping to give their children a better life. Veer excelled in school, especially in math and computer science, and by the time he turned 18, it was clear he had a rare talent for technology. He went on to earn a degree in computer engineering from a top East Coast university and was quickly recruited by a cybersecurity firm in Washington, D.C. But somewhere along the way, Shaital's ambitions shifted from ethical hacking to full-on cybercrime. He started out small, developing programs to exploit online payment systems and selling them on the dark web. By 2020, he was already on the radar of several security agencies, though no formal charges had been filed. Shaital knew how to cover his tracks. He used encrypted servers, rotated IP addresses, and laundered his money through layers of cryptocurrency wallets and offshore shell companies. He was smart, calculated, and deeply immersed in online anonymity. But the crime that would eventually bring him down wasn't just some digital scam. It was a full-scale crypto heist that led to a kidnapping attempt and over $230 million in losses. The story broke wide open in late 2023 when a small cryptocurrency exchange based in New York reported a breach that wiped out nearly all of its customer holdings. Within hours, forensic teams traced the hack to a sophisticated phishing attack that had gained access to the exchange's cold wallet credentials. The culprit had transferred over 4,000 Bitcoin to multiple wallets, all tied to anonymized servers in Eastern Europe. It wasn't just a hit-and-run job. The attack had been meticulously planned, involving months of social engineering, fake websites, and email chains built to mimic the exchange's official communication. The FBI launched an investigation, and slowly all signs pointed to one man, Veer Shaital. But before they could act, the case took a darker turn. In January 2024, a cybersecurity consultant who had been helping the feds track the stolen Bitcoin vanished outside his apartment in Virginia. It was later revealed that Shaital, in a desperate attempt to keep law enforcement at bay, had orchestrated the kidnapping using hired muscle from an online criminal forum. The victim was eventually rescued in a sting operation in Maryland, but the incident marked a dangerous shift. Shaital was no longer just a hacker. He was now seen as a direct threat to public safety. Throughout 2024, agents followed a digital trail that ran through Europe, Southeast Asia, and back into the U.S. Despite multiple leads, Shaital remained at large, believed to be moving between safe houses and protected by a small inner circle who profited from his schemes. But in April 2025, the break finally came. Acting on a tip, agents raided a co-working space in Arlington, Virginia, where they found Shaital working under a fake name surrounded by high-end laptops and a dozen burner phones. He didn't resist arrest. In fact, he seemed almost relieved. Shaital now faces a mountain of federal charges, including wire fraud, identity theft, cyber extortion, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and money laundering. Prosecutors say the total damages from his schemes could exceed $250 million when everything is tallied. Court documents reveal that Shaital had been planning a second crypto attack on a larger exchange in Asia, and had even developed a tool capable of breaching certain types of cold storage wallets, something previously thought to be nearly impossible. In court, Shaital appears calm, even confident. His legal team argues that he was unfairly targeted, and that much of the evidence relies on circumstantial digital footprints. But investigators aren't buying it. They say this was no victimless crime. Thousands of people lost their life savings. A man was nearly killed. And one of the most advanced cyber criminals in recent memory nearly got away with it. His trial is set for late 2025. And if convicted, Veer Chetal could spend the rest of his life in federal prison. From the mountains of Mexico to the forests of California and the digital trenches of cryptocurrency theft, these criminals thought they were untouchable. But each capture proves that even the smartest, deadliest, or most elusive fugitives can't stay hidden forever. Their downfalls were as dramatic as their crimes, and justice finally caught up. If stories like these fascinate you, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe for more true crime content, and turn on notifications. We've got more unbelievable manhunts coming soon that you won't want to miss.